What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the crew and you. We want to walk with you while God works in you and through you. What are you doing? Kristen's over here live. This is what our wives do while we talk as husbands. They just hey, today we want to help you love and navigate loving relationships with maybe the more difficult people in your life, or loving those who bring challenges or inconveniences or difficulties into your life. One of the things is there's two aspects of this. One is this is an extension of thinking about maybe loving the vulnerable or foster care and adoption, things like that. This is also an extension of Romans 15, which we talked about on Sunday, which talks about like welcoming others as you have been welcomed in Christ, and specifically in the midst of their failings. So loving the weak, and then specifically in the midst of the outsiders, loving those who don't originally belong or who are on the outside of the kingdom of God, which the Bible calls Gentiles, and loving those who need to be brought in. And so when you welcome others in, when you bring people into your life, when you love the weak and the vulnerable and the outsider, that gets messy. And it can be difficult and challenging. And all the while, as we talk about this, recognizing that we also are the weak and the outsider. We have been welcomed by Christ. We also bring difficult things into other people's lives.
I know that's right. Look to your left, everybody. Look to your right.
This whole discussion is just about Kristen dealing with me. That's how to welcome a husband.
I'm kidding.
So as we talk about these things, it's not always, and we've talked about this on Sundays, it's not the strong serving the weak always. It's both and sometimes in some ways you're the weak one who needs strength. Sometimes you're the outsider who needs to be brought in. Sometimes you're the difficult one who needs someone to be patient with you. And then also sometimes we're the ones who need to be patient with others. And sometimes we're strong. We need to help those who are weak. So as we discuss it or talk about it, it's very much we give these things to others. We also receive them. We need them as well. So I want to start by talking and asking you. And when we think about applying this, one of the main ways we've obviously learned to apply this is in our experience as foster care parents, and loving in very difficult, challenging, but also beautiful and redemptive situations. So when you think about what you have learned about loving maybe difficult situations, or loving those who might be difficult to love, or loving those who might create inconvenience or difficulty in your life, what are some of the things that you feel like you've learned?
Yeah, I love to get super practical, but first do want to start with like the framework for how to think through and walk through these things, especially knowing that, yes, we choose to welcome in the outsider and the hard to love, but also we often have people that are hard to love or struggling, like as you talk about Romans 15 and welcoming in the outsider. It also is like people we're in relationship, friends and family, people that are in community with that are just genuinely struggle more or harder to love, and whether you choose that relationship or not. And then there's cases where we do choose that, and that is what the Lord wants, is for us to continue to extend ourselves for others. But in order to do that, like I say every time, we do have to know the Lord and find everything we need in Him. And so my first thing would just be, we have to dig deep roots. Whether you're in a position to loving someone who's hard to love, like you just have like firing off people in your mind, or if you're not, this is also the time to listen to this and think, how do I dig deep roots to really be planted in my identity in the Lord, to really find everything I need in Him, to really navigate my days in a way where I'm in like communion with the Lord, receiving everything from Him and for Him. And that's really where we are able to kind of like freely love others no matter what comes our way. And so if we are in this like reactionary posture, or this posture of like needing a lot from people, or this posture of really needing everything to be reciprocal, then it's very challenging when things come at you that are challenging.
Yeah.
So I would say first goal is just to dig deep roots for yourself before God in order to continue in this work.
Okay. So the idea being, first and foremost, that when you're loving difficult or challenging people, or even weak and vulnerable that would create challenges in your own life, because it requires sacrifice and all these other things, that it's first and foremost more about you than it is about them. It's like being stable, like being proactive to develop the kind of deep roots, connectedness to Jesus, right mindsets that enable you then to go and engage with other people. I think that's helpful because so often we navigate loving difficult people or difficult situations um as something to do with them
Yeah.
or the difficulties or challenges they may bring,
Yeah.
as opposed to no, it's more about not about me in the sense the things I can control and being the kind of person who can love anyone in any situation, which is something I can cultivate with the Lord.
Right. And in order as you're helping loving in relationship in life with people with that bring on challenges, the way to not succumb to those challenges, for that to really enter into your inner thoughts, feelings, countenance, mental health, spiritual health, is to be strong spiritually, to find your strength in the Lord, to really be going to him and seeking him for wisdom and all of these things that we need, strength. And I think when we don't know what to do or how to love, and hopefully we'll get really practical in the next few minutes, we always know that the fruit of the Spirit is what the Lord wants. And we always know we have access to more fruit of the Spirit as we stay abiding close to the Lord. So that means no matter what they're presenting, it is, I would say, your responsibility, but it's also your right as a believer to have and extend love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, all the fruit of the Spirit that, yes, we can look at specifically what that looks like. But when in doubt, bank on, I know I can extend love, peace, joy in all things. And that's if that's all I know to pray for right now, that's what I'm going to do. And then from there, there's an extension of like specific strategies and specific things that really help us to love those. But first we have to receive that love, peace, joy from the Lord in order to extend it.
So first of all, you got to dig deep roots and pursue the Lord and be stable in and of yourself, which is something you can always be doing.
Period.
So less reactive, more proactive. One of the things I love that you say that we've learned a lot in our journey over the last 10 years or so is this phrase, connection over correction. It's the idea of like what you put first when you're dealing with behavior challenges, which obviously can be true with kids and adults. So it's a different way of thinking in terms of, well, especially from a parent perspective, but just as you're navigating behavior challenges from anyone in your life. Tell me about that phrase, connection over correction, and how you might live that out.
Okay, to be clear, this isn't my phrase. It is, I think, from TBRI, Trust-Based Relational Intervention. That is a really good thing to tap into that really kind of reframed everything for me years ago. So the first thing with this is with connection over correction, I would say first, you have to, again, it's helpful to know and receive that from the Lord, that the Lord wants connection with us through Jesus before he corrects, and then both come. And
that's how God treats us, this connection.
Yeah, that's why these things are like mind blown, because it's like, oh my gosh, this actually points me more to my Savior and how he loves, not oppositely. And what a privilege to get to be a conduit of that for others, and extending that to others is what also helps me to receive it from the Lord. Like, as you're extending it to others, you're like, wow, Lord, I need this from you. So connection over correction is a priority in our form of parenting because we don't have that same framework that families that are made up of all biology may have, that there are these foundational trust and attachments through pregnancy and birth and all the things. Some of that has been broken. And so when there was at any point a lack of safety or trust, which is understandable and reasonable, it is then priority to continue to make them feel safe, loved, and connect before we correct. So this goes with like our littles and our bigs, and honestly, even people like we're having hard conversations with someone at church right now, and how can we connect with them and really make them feel seen, valued, made in the image of God, all those things. And before we correct, instead of jumping straight to correction, punitive, stop doing this, there's always an opportunity to speak into someone before you do that. And so that's just a short phrase that we use a lot. Really, with littles, it's very quick. Everything, and that's another thing we say a lot, like no matter how you, let's say with kids in particular, but it could be with an adult presenting challenges, or a kid period with or without challenges, just because kids need training. And that's what discipline is. It's just training. And so it can look very quick, like, getting on their level and connecting with them through playful engagement is another TBRI strategy where, let's say I say, come here, and they don't come here. I could be punitive and corrective to say, I said, come here, you better come here right now, which maybe we've all done. Or I can playfully engage with that and say, oh my word, I know you can be as fast as your favorite dinosaur.
Yeah.
Are dinosaurs fast? I don't know.
Cheetah.
Cheetah. Or I know you can be as fast as show me how fast you can be like a race car to get here. Then I'm playfully having them redo it instead of punitively correcting. In the same way with like our teenager, it could be like they snap at us with an attitude. Ours would never do that, of course, but this is common. I could be like, don't you ever talk to me that way. Right. But then they're also tapping into, in our case, it can immediately trigger those things of rejection, abandonment, not trusting, all those things. But with or without that layer, and I would say there's just extra layers for us, even if it's all amazing on the surface. But anyways, that could be a, snap at us with an attitude. I could say, don't talk to me that way. Or I could say, oh, wow, like, make it playful to respond, like, oh, or even just a redo. Oh, you want to try that again?
Yeah.
In the same way, playful engagement looks a little different with adults, of course, but just having that posture of like, let me connect, stay curious with where you're coming from. Yeah. Make it lighthearted instead of always jumping to punitive correction first.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I think like traditional families maybe don't have to do in the same way, because that base is so strong, that foundation, that you do have more opportunities to correct. But I still do believe it's best practices, if you can, to connect.
It's just in terms of priority. It's not that you don't correct. It's a priority. It's what comes. What am I trying to do first? And I'm trying to keep that relationship strong, as I obviously end up correcting behavior and stuff too.
Yes, connect before correct, not connect, don't correct.
Yeah, right.
Like, we are strong on correction as needed.
Yeah.
And another phrase with that is, rules without relationship lead to rebellion. So when we see traditional families that are strong on rules, implement these behavior, and I love talking about behavior, so I won't go off on those tangents, but if we are so strong on rules and think that's going to be the framework that, number one, leads to good outcomes, and which we shouldn't be in it for anyways, and number two, points people to the Lord, that's not true. Relationship with Jesus is primary, and relationship with our kids is primary. Yeah. So as we, and that, of course, that is more of a phrase that leads to older kid parenting, less than younger kids, because most younger kids in most situations are just like chomping at the bits, loving their parents no matter what they do. So it is on you to positively form that secure attachment and relationship in so many ways in a traditional family situation. Yeah. But as they get older and they form that more autonomy, it also is important to say, hey, the relationship comes first. As I implement boundaries and guardrails and all of that.
Yeah. And I think when you take that and you broaden it and try to think through, like, this is so helpful in terms of your relationships, your friendships, church relationships, your family, is there are always things, and the instinct is, I would like to correct that, or that behavior is really annoying or unnecessary.
Or really easy to correct.
Or easy, like, why don't you just do differently? And just to that first response to be like, okay, like, that might be necessary, maybe I should say something or whatever. But how have I tried to connect with them? And I think what you talked about with the curiosity is so important. It's basically just extending grace. It's assuming that there's a deeper reason why that behavior is so consistent or difficult for them to change or whatever. There might be some insecurities down there that make them jealous, that make them respond that way. There might be some struggles or some trauma that creates a really controlling, kind of manipulative, try to force my way into things. Like, so if we stay curious with people and try to connect with them at the human level, at the made in the image of God level, at the it's okay to be weak and to have failings level, and then try to connect with them at that place, there's so much restorative help that can be done. And so it's just like a quick, before I want to correct, let me see if I can connect, or if I've even attempted to connect with their humanity, or to think through what might be really going on and trying to connect there and build that relationship. That on the long haul actually gives me more room to correct. Yeah. It gives me more of a say-so. It allows me to have more influence. That's what people miss, is when you overcorrect all the time, you lose the relational influence. And
Yeah.
then you don't have the capacity in their life for them to even listen to you.
Right. And also then seek the Lord eventually
Yeah.
because that's can impact their view of God. But that's in God's hands for sure. He can do anything. But this is like one thing is it's the long game. Like we are looking at principles that are the long game. They aren't
Yes.
quick fixes. They're
Right.
not going to be immediate, but these are like postures of your heart, principles that we see aligning with the Bible for the long term. And I think even like as you're talking, I'm thinking that kind of last night, me and you had a discussion that we just like weren't seeing things the same way. And like we both were willing to, but I think that stay curious piece is what helps diffuse things. It's just like, how could he be seeing this? And also like, what is the need behind the behavior? What is the struggle behind, I'm saying behavior, but conversation or words or whatever he's displaying or his viewpoint, like what's behind that? Like what is what background things, what tiredness things, what struggles, what preferences, all of that, just staying curious can diffuse, which is another thing that I think is so valuable, is always just trying to diffuse and pursue peace externally while you're pursuing peace with the Lord internally if someone is presenting something difficult. So let's say that is like a disagreement with a loved one or a child that's presenting a challenge that is not okay. Either way, it feels not okay, right? You either feel like your person's wrong or this person's struggling wrong or the child's wrong. And one of the things that first comes is to what we said before, like regulate, like stay calm yourself. There's lots of strategies for how to like step away or have phrases in your mind or Bible verses, deep breaths that you're able to stay calm. That could be a life's work that I think we should all invest in and what God would have. But definitely hard. And then help the other person regulate, get to a calmer place. And that has to be done before there's any reasoning at all, which we've talked about.
Yeah, that idea of regulation it's big in childhood, but it's important for everyone. That
100%.
You can't even have even a good corrective beneficial conversation if both parties aren't regulated.
Yeah.
Like you can't, like the example with children is you can't correct a kid in panic and have them listen to your speech about how they should be doing differently.
Yeah.
They have to get calm before you can ever help them grow.
And that's another way to connect before you correct or to regulate and relate before, and then I think a huge part is repair. Like this is the distinguishing factor as we talk about these things and things that can help. And there's lots of specific strategies that I love to talk about. But the thing is, we're not going to do any of this right. And the reason we know this is because we have sought so much help when it feels like hard to do it right, hard to do it well, hard to love certain people at church, or hard to love each other, or hard to love, kids we love, or hard to love whoever.
Sure, everybody can be hard to love, including ourselves.
That's the whole thing. But what do we do with that? So I think the repair is the mark that's different, particularly for our people and our kids who have had ruptures in relationships, big ruptures, right? Like loss, separation, foster care, adoption. But then there's a lot of adults we talk to that when you like peel back the layers, you're like, you've actually had lots of ruptures, right? And we all do. Some of our, people we love have marriages with lots of ruptures. So what I would focus on then is, yes, we will have ruptures. That is a part of relationships on this side of heaven. But the repair is the part that really is foundational, that your part can be in your control. That really does reshape things, of putting things back together, of how we lead in that is a huge difference maker with our 2-year-old, our 10-year-old, our 15-year-old, and our 30-year-old people we love.
Yeah. And there's room obviously within this. And I think it's important for people to remember that whether it's peace or love, there are things we're commanded to, even if it's not reciprocated. So it's not I do, so I get. It's I love because I am loved, not to be loved by you. And it's really, people lose steam if they're always the one giving the love and it's not being reciprocated.
Yeah.
But the biblical idea of love is exactly that. It's like a sacrificial, die to self, be loved by God, like have your love bucket full so that you can give that stuff away. And I think so often relationships find a lot of difficulty because there is a one-sidedness to them. Or even peace. The Bible says pursue peace as much as you are able, like to the extent that you can, which means there will be situations where peace is not the outcome, where the other person, or maybe it's a divorce or something, where the other person's not at peace because they're the ones making the bad decisions or they refuse to compromise. And it's then me choosing to receive God's peace and to distribute that to others, not because I want, not expecting or necessarily having to have the outcome that the other person's at peace, or giving love to be loved. And I think so often people get stuck in that dynamic, is loving hard people that might be have challenging behaviors or challenging situations that make life difficult. It's a lot of loving sometimes without necessarily at least the feeling of being loved in return. It's a lot of efforts at peace without there being peace, so there's still chaos. And that can be really defeating outside of the biblical perspective of like, this is actually the kind of love that God expects us to give and that is fueled by him. So once again, it's like we talked about on Sunday a little bit, where if I'm not going outside of my capacity, then I never have to rely on God. The idea is I'm supposed to do things I can't do so that I'm forced to rely on him. And if I can receive his love, I'm enabled to give love without it being returned, at least in the same way.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I think that's really, and at its root, at its base, love and relationships should be reciprocal. So desiring that, desiring that is a good thing. You should not want your relationships to be transactional, you know, and that is, so valuable. However, even looking at like the cultural view of friendship and the biblical model of friendship. So this is from like relationships like friendship down to relationships with kids or whoever, like the wide range of it is the biblical model is giving without expecting to receive, is putting on these things like Colossians talks about, putting on love, putting on, all these things in no matter what you receive in return. And so again, that's a freeing place to be, to not need anything in return. And it's also understandable that you're really wanting that other person to love you. But with God, we have the power to love no matter what's in return. So I think if we're putting more legs on it, is oftentimes that can be, number one, with any child, it can look like their behaviors could signify not feeling loved. At some point, lots of kids say like, I hate you or whatever. Not okay, all the things, but there's a reasonable thing that happens. And then you add the layer of really not experiencing a lot of that love and safety early on. You look at getting placed in a family with all different cultural norms, daily routines, expectations, ways of parenting, all of that. And it's understandable that it's not always going to feel like rainbows at first. And they might have these automatic responses of like, do you love me? I don't know if I can love you. I need to protect myself because I've had to survive and I'll keep surviving. And so some of our kids love and attach very easily, and others struggle for very understandable reasons. And that can go, pretty deep into having genuine attachment disorders and things like that. And sometimes the complete opposite, and attachment is totally repairable. And that's why these strategies are really valuable to invest in. And so I think it is those ways of it may be sometimes feel like a transaction to someone who's struggling, and you may not get what you deserve in return, but the goal changes to being faithful. I'm going to be faithful to love no matter what's in return. I'm going to be faithful to extend, to put on this love and care and compassion no matter what's in response. And that's where you're able to really keep that regulation, keep that posture, keep that diffusing the situation, because nothing you say has the power to hurt me, because I understand what's at play here.
Right.
And I understand and that's not that easy. Like I talk to friends all the time about like what it's like to have something thrown back in your face when all you've extended is love and care. Sure. It's hard. It's really hard. Yeah. So this is like,
none of this is
preaching
easy,
what's harder to practice. That can happen with spouse or anyone. Just like you're extending love and it like gets thrown back in your face. What do you do?
Yeah. It makes me think of too the idea that, because some people just live in dysfunction in all their relationships. And it's like, if I can have at least a few healthy ones, like there are mature, godly people who will love you well. Those people exist. So if I can have some of those relationships, obviously, and God being my main source, but he distributes his love through people, then it enables me to handle maybe some difficult ones. So there might be some situations where all the relationships are difficult, or it is very one-sided. And yeah, the advice isn't just to live in that scenario forever and just be filled by God's love bucket, but to also try to find, and hopefully within church is the place you can find these things, some people who do know how to love you well and who will care for you and be selfless in that, so that it's not just, like, let's say you're married, let's say you're like your relationship. I mean, one of the things is I always know I'm loved by God 100%, but I also always know I'm loved by you. My love bucket, I do have a person.
Love bucket.
I have a person.
If you say love bucket.
I don't know why I keep saying that, but you know, you just
I'm
think
glad
of
I feel your love bucket.
So I can handle being not unloved, but I can handle other things not being reciprocated because I do have some stability with you. So the idea of just, and with my parents or other people, just like there are avenues of having that love assured. And hopefully people, you know, in the city light, I hope we try to foster that. You should try to find those relationships. The church is a great place for that. And it's going to be really hard to handle other areas of dysfunction if you don't have some relationships that are functionable.
Yes, I think the goal there is to have safe places to land. Like, you're going to take hits. How do I take hits and not react, not overreact, not lash out, not do everything that maybe they even may deserve or that they're presenting me with? How do I not match their energy, so to speak? And like, you know, find everything I need in the Lord is to have a safe place to land. That means I'm going to deal with it face to face and hopefully the calmest, like, unreactionary way, and then I can go cry in a corner and seek God, or call the friend that understands, or, you know, text the Bible study group that's like in your corner, even if they don't understand, or go to the support group with people who understand, like, whatever it is.
Gotta have community.
First, having that place before the Lord, and that's why these things are good, to really draw us to seek Him. Let your hard relationships do that, draw you near to Him, and then have a few people that are a safe place to land. And then, of course, we have to be a safe place to land. Like, as we're a safe place to land for other people, we also need our safe place to land before the Lord, and also with a few other people. But maybe we can end on this, is I can just, like, hear the listeners saying, what about boundaries? How do you love and pursue peace when it's, like, truly difficult to draw those lines? And what if it's destructive, not just like hard? What are those lines, and what do we do about it?
Right. Well, I think we did this a little bit. I don't know if it was a few weeks ago, because it was part of the sermon, that peace is not the same as trust.
Yeah, we did.
So just the idea that I can pursue peace with someone without maintaining the same level of trust. So there are obviously places for appropriate boundaries, and the relationship, it depends on the relationship. So if it's a marriage and let's say the husband is abusive, you need to get out. You need to some sort of separation for safety. You don't need to trust him the same way, but there is still a call to love and be at peace in ways that are appropriate in regards to that situation. So obviously you need community, you need wisdom. There's not a one size fits all, but it is true in every situation we should pursue love and peace. That might look different based off safety, based off what's appropriate with proximity, based off levels of trust. So there are people in our life that we should probably disconnect from at some level that are too destructive. There are situations though, like as a parent-child relationship, that relationship maintains. There's that doesn't change. So whatever might be going on, you begin to navigate that. There are some relationships that can change. Like if you're dating someone and they're awful, then break up with them and never see them again. Like that. So I don't know. I guess wisdom in every situation, but
for sure. And boundaries are loving. Obviously, sometimes people can overextend the use of boundaries, and
I think people do. I think people are too sensitive these days.
Yeah. So we want to talk about how when you are overextended, when you do extend yourself, what to do with that. But there are boundaries are needed, obviously, in every relationship, and this could go, you know, in literally every relationship. And with our kids, it's like you may have these deep layers that we want to help you with. But we still have boundaries of, okay, you're not going to talk to me like that, so let's try that again. Or like, oh, that was a silly way to talk to me. Why don't you try that again? You know, where it's you set the you connect and you correct by setting the boundary. And then there's these bigger things of, you know, this adult person who wants things from you and calls you 12 times a day to ask for whatever. It's loving to set a boundary. Actually, I was reading that book last night. This is funny. I got a book for a friend
about divorce,
about unwanted divorce. It just was released, and I cracked that baby open.
She was reading it right away. I was like, "Are you preparing for something? Why are you reading a book on divorce?"
I was like, "It's
We're
really
good, right?
I'll let you know." No, but It just came out. I think it is really good. I only read the first few pages.
What was it called?
I think something about navigating an unwanted divorce. So it's like when you find yourself in that situation, obviously unideal, incredibly challenging, lots of hardship involved. But some people end up in that situation. But
Yeah, what was the thing? I think you had a phrase or a thought from the book you were wanting. I don't know. You hadn't said it yet. So.
Just how really it was unloving to continue in that.
Oh, for her to stay in that same relationship was unloving to him because it allowed him to keep sinning against her.
Yeah, at that point it said, basically, the book on divorce was saying that it was unloving to keep his secrets and to keep letting the destruction continue in the way it was. And so it is like, pray for wisdom on what love looks like, because it is unloving to let, we're not talking about getting walked all over any of that. Like draw lines in love. But a lot of relationships, we extend ourselves, and that's what you were saying in Romans 15. So there's so much nuance, so much specifics that I actually love to talk about. It just doesn't feel like there's a way to cover it all.
Well, and every situation is so unique. You really do need like friends, pastoral counsel, wisdom, mentors. You need people in your life. Every situation requires the application of wisdom. So, yeah.
Well, we can answer specifics. We can answer more.
Yeah, maybe
people have to
maybe this would be helpful to do a Q&A if you guys have more questions about your relational difficulties or loving people that it might be difficult or bring certain challenges into your life. We'd love to help as best we can.
Send this to the difficult person. It's fine.
That would be funny.
Tell them you're learning about it and wonder what they think.
Just text them like, I really like this podcast.
Yeah, it's weird. Nate's going to get a text with this episode. It's really weird.
And on that note, thanks for joining us today for The Crew and You. We want to walk with you while God works in you and through you. See you next time.
Peace.